On December 12, 2018, 15-year-old Jordyn Walker began to complain of toothache and an unstoppable runny nose. Now, for most parents and teenagers, such symptoms would seem more like an inconvenience than anything else. But for Walker and her family, it was a cause for significant alarm, because they remembered what happened a year earlier, a scary stint in the hospital that had begun in much the same way. Her parents didn't hesitate. They hopped in the car with Jordyn and drove about an hour away to the University of Kansas Medical Center, where they begged with doctors and medical staff to treat their concerns with greater alarm. When Jordyn's face started swelling, as her parents suspected it would, her mother showed a photograph from the last time this had happened to the medical professionals at the center. Finally, they took the family seriously. Unfortunately, this time, the swelling was even worse. Jordyn's face, particularly her eyes, began to swell so severely that they began popping out of her head. Doctors tried to limit the pressure caused by the swelling by removing Jordyn's eyelids. When this was not enough, they had to sever the eyes themselves, a sensation that Jordyn was very much aware of at the time. It was too late, however. The pressure and the surgery that the doctors had been required to perform on her eyes had left Jordyn blind permanently, and nobody knew why. Jordyn's medical history. Jordyn had always struggled with strange, nigh inexplicable medical ailments. When Jordyn had been a toddler, she developed vomiting and bloody diarrhea so severe that she had to be hospitalized for it. Doctors ultimately determined that these symptoms were the results of colitis, a condition which involved swelling of the colon lining causing uncomfortable sores to form within the colon. It was a serious inconvenience, but one that Jordyn had learned to live with. Other medical conditions sprung up from time to time throughout Jordyn's childhood, but the colitis seemed particularly severe. Nonetheless, Jordyn remained an optimistic child, willing to see the best in the world and make the best of her life, rather than bemoan the medical circumstances that seemed to plague her. However, in 2017, Jordyn's family went on a planned cruise. Jordyn begged her parents not to go on the cruise, telling them that she sensed something bad was going to happen, though she couldn't say precisely what. Her mother assuaged her fears, and the family departed on their vacation. The cruise took them to the Bahamas, among other Caribbean locations, and seemed to go off without a hitch. After the cruise, Jordyn was scheduled to stay with her aunt in North Carolina, while the rest of the family returned to Missouri. For the first few days, nothing seemed to be the matter. Then, Jordyn's colitis began to flare up, with the bloody stools, the stomach cramps, and everything else that typically came with it. Jordyn's aunt reasonably believed that these symptoms would fade over time, but they didn't. In fact, they got worse, and Jordyn began experiencing symptoms that neither she nor her family had ever seen before. Her face began to swell severely, and dark bruises appeared all across it. Blood clots formed in her nostrils, and her aunt panicked, drove her to the hospital within North Carolina's cutting-edge research triangle. Doctors there were puzzled. They gave her medication to address her colitis and to reduce the swelling, and over time, Jordyn's condition faded. Doctors assured the family that it must be a one-in-a-million situation, and that they suspected that Jordyn was simply suffering some sort of allergic reaction. Then, life went on as normal for about a year. At least until Jordyn started experiencing the symptoms that had marked the onset of this terrifying condition. She and her family rushed to the hospital, horrified that this was all happening again. They were right. The search for answers. Jordyn and her parents were determined to discover what had caused her to suddenly lose her eyesight. They visited all kinds of specialists, and none of them could explain what had happened. Doctors suggested that the same condition that caused Jordyn's gastrointestinal issues had also caused this horrible facial swelling, but they couldn't pin down exactly what it was. They have proposed a wide variety of potential ailments that could lead to this, but extensive testing has proved definitively that Jordyn does not have any of these conditions. Jordyn and her family publicized her case widely, appearing on talk shows such as Dr. Oz and having her story covered by The Today Show. They even raised money through a GoFundMe to take a trip to the Mayo Clinic, renowned for its ability to solve the toughest medical mysteries and perform the most complicated surgeries. Even they were stumped by Jordyn's condition. Thus, several years later, Jordyn and her family still don't know what caused this terrifying condition, or if it might come back in the future. Obviously, they hope this won't be the case. Jordyn herself has stated, "I just hope it never happens again. I don't really know what else I can lose." But without knowing exactly what caused these horrible circumstances, there's simply no way to know whether it will happen again. Conclusion. Although Jordyn's medical mystery is certainly tragic, it's not stopped her from living her best life. Many people would have been devastated by this awful occurrence and would understandably let it derail their life. But not Jordyn. Her unbridled optimism and sense of humor shines through despite this. Jordyn was involved in both photography and archery before her sudden loss of eyesight. On the subject of archery at least, Jordyn jests, "I can still do it, it's just different. With archery, I didn't know how to aim before. Now they can't get angry if I miss." Though she's undoubtedly been devastated by these circumstances, she's refused to let it stop her from cracking jokes and enjoying life. Jordyn has asserted that, "I'm not gonna let this stop me." And by all accounts, she hasn't. A Facebook group that was set up for Jordyn's medical bills didn't post any updates for almost 2 years. Then an update came from Jordyn's family, in which she is referred to as Jay, the nickname she seemed to like most. The update says Jordyn successfully graduated high school and has completed her first semester at the University of Central Missouri, where she pledged a sorority. This was back in January of 2022, and besides a YouTube video documenting Jordyn's condition, there have been no updates since. This is both good and bad news. Of course, it means there's been no new developments in solving the medical mystery that has plagued Jordyn and her family, but it also means that things are likely still going well for her. Jordyn was faced with a unimaginable, inexplicable situation that could have easily broken her. Instead, she has persevered, and it's my hope that she continues to receive a great education and has a great college experience at the University of Central Missouri. She certainly seems like the kind of person with the drive to do some really amazing things. I certainly hope that she gets that opportunity. If you enjoyed this story, make sure you check out this story right here, which is a story of malicious compliance taken to the extreme, when the devastating results of someone doing exactly what they were told come to light. I'll see you over there.